BMW CEO is stepping down. Is he the first casualty of the legacy manufacturer falling behind in electrification on its fleet? I have a perfect guest today, Tom Malogny from Inside EVs. I know he skipped last week, but he's back today, and he has been following this brand for the longest time, and he's going to give us his 2 cents about whether or not this is all about electric cars or there are just other trouble in the BMW world. All of this is coming up next. Taking over the world, electrifying the world, E4 Electric. Welcome to E4 Electric, your number one source of unbiased electric car news. If this is your first time here, go ahead and click on that subscribe button down there so you don't miss anything moving forward. Alright, so I know you guys probably seen my video from, what has it been, less than a week, where BMW has been kind of trying to announce more announcements about electric cars, but none of them are really hitting, the right spot. There were rumors about the CEO maybe not continuing on with the company, and I at that time a lot of people, including myself, thought that it has something to do with BMW falling behind. As you know, Mercedes, Porsche, Audi, Tesla, all of them have electric cars, or at least will have at least one by the end of the year. That's relatively impressive. But BMW, as you can see, this iNext car that I reviewed last year when I saw it in person for the first time in September in San Francisco, is 2-3 years away, and it's kind of had mixed reviews. So because it's Friday, Tom is going to be here to discuss this. He has some interesting opinions about that. We're going to go back to a couple of quotes from one of their executives from earlier this week that kind of shook the electric car world, annoyed a lot of people, though it might have some truth to it, and I'll get Tom's opinion about it as well. Before I talk to him, of course, a quick reminder that this video and this channel is sponsored by Byton. Check out an all-electric, all-new SUV coming to the US and Europe at the end of next year, starting at only $45,000. That's before incentives. So I don't know what you're waiting for, because you can make a reservation right now. It costs $0, about 60 seconds. Takes to make a reservation. Myself and over 50,000 people already done so. So go to the description of this video and get yours today. All right, without further ado, let me bring in Tom, and we'll talk about this interesting development. Tom, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, Alex.
All right, well, good to have you back. I know we skipped a week, but I'm glad you're here, because this is the news that I haven't seen in a regular electric car publications. But the story inside the story here is that there might be a possibility that he's out because BMW is not doing well with electric cars. Tell us a little bit about what's happening and what your opinion on this is.
Sure. Well, this just came about today. Has been rumors for a few weeks now that the current BMW CEO Harold Kruger would not seek second term. And one thing that's important to note is that it's extremely common that BMW CEOs take on 2 terms. It's actually very rare when the CEO departs after only 1 term. Throughout their history, most BMW CEOs have at least 2 terms. So this is definitely unusual. And Kruger is not going to seek the second term. And the timing is probably, not probably, I'm certain it was planned, because I believe in this month's board meeting, BMW is going to be discussing whether or not he would be reappointed or so forth and so on. So he was preemptive and said, you know what, I'm not going to be running. So now this board member meeting in a couple of weeks is going to, basically, they're going to decide who's going to succeed him. So, during Kruger's term, BMW really has not done well. They had definitely fallen behind in electrification, and not just electrification, but in other advanced technologies like autonomous driving, car sharing, some of the things that many of the automakers are realizing is really the future of the industry. And BMW is just kind of, while they're working on it, hasn't really made any strides forward, unlike when they were led by Rotherford, the previous CEO. During that tenure, BMW seemed to be really on the cutting edge of everything. They started the whole BMW I division, built on innovation. They started a car sharing service. They started Park Now, which was a service to find parking spaces. The Drive Now was the car sharing service. So they really seemed to be getting a leg up on the other legacy automakers. And when it seems, it could be coincidental, but it really seems like right around the time Kruger took over in 2015 is when a lot of BMW's programs kind of started slowing down. Now, I wouldn't want to put all this blame on Kruger, but when you're at the top of the organization and things aren't going well at that point, you have to shoulder the blame. And unfortunately for Kruger, it seems like a lot of the blame on the fact that they're falling behind with autonomous driving, with electrification, is getting placed at his feet, and he's not getting a second term.
Now, why do you think that is? Because I've been kind of puzzled. I mean, they have committed to billions and billions of dollars in investing in the, batteries and electric powertrain. They obviously have money. They've had an i3 for the longest time. I think they were one of the first manufacturers, maybe besides Nissan, that actually came out with an all-electric vehicle. Why do you think that is? I kind of thought this is kind of common knowledge in terms of that's where the technology going, that's where the regulations are going. What gives?
So within every entrenched manufacturer, there's factions that believe electrification is the future. There's factions that think that they should be going the hydrogen route, and there's other factions that still think internal combustion is going to rule for another couple decades. So, and I've had the opportunity to speak with executives in just about every major OEM at this point now. And it's funny, you'll talk to one executive and they'll be totally bullish on electric vehicles. And a couple months later, you'll speak with someone else and they'll kind of be like, well, we're going to take a wait and see. So, that's just the dynamic of these companies, Alex. And, profits rule all. So, you take a guy like Kruger, who, has been working for BMW for nearly 30 years. And, he gets to the point where he's on the board of directors, and then he gets to the point where he's actually CEO. And during your tenure, you don't want to be the CEO that lost money, that wasn't profitable. And the problem with EVs right now is, while I think many of the people understand they're the future, they're not good for short-term profits. And, I think a lot of the problems they're having now is just short-sightedness. The refusal to give up short-term profits and make investments is what's making them fall behind. Back in 2007, 2008, when BMW really started this whole BMW I, they committed to that at that point and said, look, we're going to invest billions of dollars into this, and we're going to try to figure out where we need to be in 10 or 15 or 20 years. And they seemed to start down that path, but it was extremely painful. There were a lot of people within BMW, people that I spoke to, over in Munich when I visited their headquarters, that said, we're just burning cash. This isn't where we need to be. And they literally were spending billions of dollars. So, I think that after 4 or 5 years of that and not seeing much of a return, that the board decided that, hey, maybe we need to pull back a little bit on this. Maybe we were a little too early with the i3 and the i8. So we're going to pull back on electrification. We're going to try to get profitable and make money. And then we'll jump back in another 5 to 10 years when we think that the industry is going to be ready for these cars. That's pure speculation on my part, but it's I wouldn't say it's pure, because I have spoken with some of the executives at BMW, many of which who've left the company, that were in the BMW I division, and they left because that BMW decided to pull back. So, and you've spoken with some of these people also. So, I think that they got cold feet, basically. I think after spending a few $1 billion between 2008 and 2013, when the i3 launched and i8, that they said, well, okay, we did electrification. Let's make some money now and then we'll get back into it when we need to. And their projections were that by 2025, they were going to have 25 electrified cars. 12, I believe, were BEVs, and 13 are plug-in hybrids. And now, just last week, they announced that they're moving that up from 2025 to 2023, which means that in 4 years from now, BMW is going to have 12 all-electric cars. And that's not counting the i3, because in 2022, the i3 is getting killed. So 12 all-electric cars between now and 2023. That's pretty aggressive. And I think that they're realizing that they should have kept pedal to the metal the whole time. And now they need to catch up.
Did you say that BMW i3 is going to be killed in the next few years?
The i3 and the i8 are being killed off in 2022.
Oh, well, you know what I think about that in terms of i3, but very recently they've just posted the pictures of what it looks like there's going to be next generation i8 in their big event. So I think that car is actually going to get electrified a little more. And it's gonna maybe have a next name. There was some other name that they're putting it under, but it looks like they'll still have a roadster or two-door expensive sports car with the doors, going up.
Sure, I understand what you're saying, that it looks like it, but it will not be called the i8.
Yeah.
And it will not be considered the next generation i8. It's going to be a completely different car. It's not going to have the carbon fiber frame that the i8 does. The i8 and i3 are not going to have second generation cars. BMW's electrification now is just going to be their main brand, with all their regular models that are available in gas, plug-in hybrid, or fully electric.
All right. Let's see. I was just looking for a picture of it, and I think I have it somewhere. There you go. All right. Well, okay. So let me ask you this though, because we were talking about how they weren't really counting on this being not as profitable, but I think there was no secret that Tesla Model 3, which you're now the owner of, even 3 years ago was going to be a direct competitor to a BMW 3 Series, which is essentially their flagship car, if you will. How did they not see this coming? Because they're, the one of the reasons the guy is being asked to be out politely is because their sales is like the worst. They had like the worst quarter in 10 years, and obviously a lot of it is being now directed and paid to Tesla by customers rather than going back to BMW, especially 3 Series. How did they did not see that coming when everyone was saying that is going to be the main competitor?
Alex, I really don't have an answer for that. 3 years ago, I just looked up, it was in April of 2019. I wrote a 2-part series for Inside EVs on how BMW can fend off the charge of the Tesla Model 3. This was before the Model 3 even launched. And, my answer to that was that in late 2019, they need to release a 2020 model, which would be a couple months now from being released. That's like a long range, a 250-mile crossover, kind of like what the Model Y is going to be. And my advice to BMW back then was, listen, by 2019, 2020, you've got to have an answer to the Model 3, or they're really going to eat into your sales. And they are. And I even personally have a story. 3 weeks ago, I was at a barbecue at my friend's house, and his brother loves BMWs, and he had a couple M3s. He was leasing an M3 now, and his lease is up in September. And he saw me pull up in the Tesla, and he said, "Oh, wow, I've been curious about those cars. How do you like it?" I said, "Well, let's go for a drive." I let him drive it. We went on like a 5-mile drive and came back. That night, he ordered a Model 3 Performance loaded, and took delivery of it right before the quarter to get the full tax credit. And he's now in the process of returning his M3 2 months early. So, here's somebody who just didn't know anything about electric cars and was curious about it. He went for a ride and he came back and he said, "I have to have this car. It's so much better than my M3." So yeah, BMW's a prime target for Tesla Model 3. It really is probably the biggest you know conquest sale that Tesla's having, are BMW owners that want a luxury sports sedan, and it does everything that the Model 3 does, that the M3 does, and even better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they I don't know how they didn't see this, Alex. That was your question to me. I really don't know how they didn't jump on this years ago. They have the tools, they have the financing, they have the engineers. They could put out a Model Y this year if they would have started 4 years ago. I think that they misjudged the market and didn't think we were going to be where we're at
Well,
now.
obviously, none of them are subscribed to my channel for some odd reason, because I've had this comparison like 2 years ago when everybody was comparing Model 3 to Bolt. And I was like, whoa, 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 guys, don't compare it to another electric car. I think it's going to be 3 Series. And everyone was like, you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. But now, all of a sudden, it becomes true. So if any of those guys would have been subscribing to me, including their CEO, I think I could have helped. But okay, let me get your opinion on something else. This is something everybody in our industry kind of gotten a little either angry or excited about. And this were the comments, and I'm going to bring them on a screen right now. Quotes from their BMW's director of development, and he has 3 different quotes that I want to get your take on. One is. The most famous one is where he basically said that nobody wants electric cars, which was misinterpreted because he was actually just saying no one's asking for an electric version when they walk into our dealerships. So I just want to be clear about that. The second one is he's basically was saying that it's the regulators, it's the government that's kind of wants it more than actual people. And the third one is he was just saying that, electric cars are for China and California, and really people just want plug-in hybrids with a good EV range, though obviously he's not aware of what good EV range is, judging by what BMW is producing right now as far as plug-in hybrids are concerned. Do you want to address those 3, and so we can get your take on that?
Sure. So that was board member Klaus Froelich that made those comments, and unfortunately, he made them at the announcement that BMW was moving up their planned electrification from 2025 to 2023. So this was kind of like they're announcing we're bringing more electric vehicles and we're bringing them faster. Oh, and by the way, people aren't asking for these. Just the regulators are asking for these. Nobody's asking for BEVs. Like plug-in hybrids are awesome, but nobody's asking for BEVs. So anyway, when I saw this quote, somebody posted it in the BMW i3 group on Facebook, which I'm one of the admins, and I promptly posted a picture of my BEV i3S and my new Model 3 side by side, and just kind of said, shaking my head, Klaus, nobody's asking for BEVs, and here's my garage. And by the way, I don't live in China or California. I'm here in New Jersey, and I drive 2 BEVs. So, it's unfortunate. And the real unfortunate thing about it is Froelich is actually in the running to replace Kruger.
No way. No way. Wow.
That's what we hear. And I've actually met him in the past. He seemed like a genuinely nice guy, but if that's his thought, if BMW sunk under Kruger's reign, how bad is it going to go if somebody who just thinks that BEVs are for regulators is the CEO? So let's see what happens. He isn't the front runner. The front runner is Oliver Zipse, board member, and I don't know a lot about him. I searched for some quotes for him on electric cars, and there really isn't much. He's not a long-time board member. He's young too. He's only 55, I believe. So he hasn't been out there for many years making quotes for BMW, like an Ian Robertson, for instance, who's been a very long-time board member. And we could grab a bunch of quotes from him and see where his head is on electrification. But Zipsy really, there's not too many quotes, so I don't really know. In my opinion, it can't be worse than Froelich, based on Froelich's latest comments. So let's see. I hope that BMW. I like BMW as a brand. I have friends there. I know a lot of their program managers. I've been in I was in their EV pilot program for 5 years. I get to meet some tremendous engineers and people at BMW. There's a lot of good people there that really are pushing for electrification. And it would be a shame to see them really lose their edge. And I mean, they've already lost their edge, but I'm confident that with the right leadership and management, they can get it back. I know a lot of people in the EV world say, "Oh, BMW is dead. They're like Polaroid, they're Kodak," and I don't really believe that. I believe many of the legacy OEMs, if they really truly decided to make that pivot to electrification, they can. They'll still be behind Tesla, but they have so much resources, so much money, they can catch up. It might take a while, but I do believe they can catch up in the next decade. It's just a matter of, do they have the stomach to do it? Because it's going to mean, very weak profits for many years to get up to speed. They're going to have to invest many billions of dollars to really get up to speed with where Tesla is right now. I mean, my Model 3, I love it. There's nothing else like it out there. There really isn't. I love the Jaguar I-Pace. I've driven it. The user interface isn't nearly as intuitive or as good as the Tesla's is. The supercharger network is unmatched. These things, these OEMs can overcome, but they've got a long way to go, and they have to commit to it. They can't do it half-assed. If they really want to be relevant in the next decade, they really need to make that pivot soon.
All right. Well, let me put you on a hot seat then. All right. Let's say, they vote Tom Malogny as the new CEO of BMW. What would you do? Which, by the way, I would vote. I would vote that way. That's not a bad idea. And don't laugh. I actually think that at this point we might as well.
Yeah.
I think you have some better ideas. But okay, what would be your short-term goal for, for example, the next 12 months, right? Just to kind of figure things out. And what would be your like 5-year plan? Go.
Well, my first thing would then be to reappoint someone that knows how to run a major automotive company and be their assistant. Okay, let's get that straight. But the plan that they claim that they're on now, that by 2023 to have 12 BEVs and 13 plug-in hybrids, I think that's a pretty good plan. Depending on what the BEVs are they long range, fast charging BEVs? I believe they're going to be. So I think moving up their plan from 2025 to now 2023 shows that they're realizing now, hey, we need to get serious about this. So, you can't pull cars out of thin air, Alex. Cars take 4 to 5 years gestation period. So, even if Elon Musk took over Tesla right now, I mean, BMW now, they couldn't really operate on much of a more aggressive timeline than 12 electric cars in 4.5 years. Those cars have to already be in, there have to be in the engineering phase. So you can't just pull them out of thin air. Look at even Tesla. They go on very aggressive, timelines, but it still takes them years to get a car out. And then even once it's out, another year before it really should have been released. So, the BMW's timeline with 12 electric cars, fully electric BEVs in 4.5 years, and 13 plug-in hybrids, if they do that and they're good offerings, long range, fast charging, 100 to 150 kilowatt minimum, then I think they're going to be in pretty good shape.
Okay, so, but let me ask you this, and I think somebody asked me this question last week, and I really didn't have a good answer, but should BMW or really other legacy manufacturers that are also just as behind, like Toyota and Honda and so forth, should they consider acquiring an existing electric car startup? There are plenty here and in China and in Europe. Why not buy Lucid Motors? Why not buy Faraday Future? Granted, they still have some IP left, and there are quite a few other startups that may not be having this flashy prototypes that we see, but have a technology. Acquiring a company like Maxwell Technology that Tesla acquired recently, and basically kind of speed up the process. Giant companies do this all the time in IT industry, where they're behind. They just buy a startup that passed them in technology, and boom, they're kind of on par with their competition. Why hasn't been that happening? And would you recommend that BMW does that to solve this problem?
Well, two reasons. Number one, their pride. I believe that they don't believe that they need help from anyone. They've been making cars for 100 years or whatever, and they have extremely deep
Well,
pockets.
wait,
They've
wait,
got
wait. You're the CEO. You're the CEO. So you do what
okay.
you think is right. So back to you, CEO Tom.
So honestly, I don't believe it's necessary. I think that they have the resources to put out a good electric car if they wanted to. Now, I think that it's going to take a little bit longer to match, say, Tesla. Some of the things Tesla does with efficiency, they're incredibly efficient vehicles. I think it's going to take them a generation or two to catch up with Tesla, but that's okay. Their first generation of all electric cars doesn't have to be as efficient as Tesla's. Tesla is still a minuscule company compared to all these other existing OEMs with overall volume. Tesla, BMW sells like over 2 million cars a year, and they're a small legacy manufacturer. So, Tesla has a long way to go before they're going to hit that type of volume. BMW has the people. They have the engineering. They have the resources. It's just the will to do it. And like I mentioned earlier, the board doesn't want to have to constantly answer to stockholders how come they're not profitable for 2 or 3 years as they make this transition, because it's going to take that. When all these existing legacy companies really make that transition to electrification, they're going to feel some pain for years. They're not going to make money for the better part of half a decade. It's going to happen when they really commit and put the kind of investment they need to really build a strong electric vehicle program. So no one wants to be the board member or the CEO that presided over the era where they just posted constant losses after losses after losses. I think they were hoping they could put it off until battery technology got so much better and the prices came down so much that they can then really launch these cars and not lose as much money as they would if they did it in the last couple of years. Because let's face it, Alex, up until now, really, nobody was making money selling electric cars. And, you don't make money by selling more of them. If you're losing money on every car, you don't get out of that hole by selling 10 times as many. The fact that batteries were expensive, still are expensive, but the prices are coming down. They're getting to the point now where it's possible to be profitable selling the cars, but it really just hasn't been in the last 10 years.
Now, I do have to disagree a little bit here, because I think, and this is just my idea that I've been floating in my head about, how can these legacy manufacturers and just any electric car maker actually still make money on these cars? And to me, it's all about digital services. If BMW loses money on every electric car that they make, but that they gain pure profits on streaming services, games, an app store, internet services that you get to the car. I think that's where the money is, because you don't have to sell hardware. You don't have to sell it at the same time as you're selling the car. Tesla's been showing the way with their full self-driving feature, where you can buy a Tesla without it and then upgrade it and get an over-the-air update of that feature later. They've got now games and other little apps that you can download. If BMW does that, or any legacy manufacturer does that, they can make money with very little investment on the digital services that will offset the losses that they're going to be seeing from selling electric cars. What are your thoughts on that?
It's possible you're right, but we're coming back to the problem that all entrenched industry leaders have is they try to exploit the business model that they have to the fullest. You're asking them to really, change their business model, and their whole company has been built on the last, 50, 60, 70 years on refining the current business model, making it better, saving money in production, in, every part of the manufacturing process, the sales stream. So now you're asking them, saying, okay, you know what? Just throw out all that work that you've refined on and gotten this down to a science, because we have a new business model now to make money selling cars. You don't really make money the way you've been doing it all this time. You're going to make money doing, ancillary services. So I don't disagree with you that the automotive future is going to go in that direction. But that's part of the reason why some of these industry giants, not just in automotive, look at Kodak and Xerox and whatnot, they establish themselves as these dominant industry forces, but then they can't change their business model. Look at Nokia. Nokia was like the smartphone leader early on, and they just weren't able to change to like the iPhone did and Android. And so, that's kind of the same with the automotive. These entrenched companies, they're so used to perfecting their model and just refining it now. And now you're saying, okay, you did that great for all these years. Now you need to change it. While some of the people in the company might agree and say, yeah, we're going to have to do that, they're going to try to put it off as long as possible because they just don't know any other way of doing business. And it's hard to change.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Only more reasons to make you the CEO. That's what I say.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, listen. Thanks for giving your opinion on this because it is a tough situation for both communities. I think the legacy manufacturer community and electric car enthusiast community. And you're right. It's not going to be easy. But I'm glad that this happened. I hope it's a good example for the other legacy manufacturers saying, hey, listen, if you're the CEO, if you're running a legacy manufacturer and you're very much behind right now, and I hope Toyota and Honda are listening, you might have no job tomorrow. So I like this news. And let's see what BMW does with this, though.
No, I agree. I hope that they've kind of seen the light now and had this momentary couple of years where they said we're going to slow walk EVs a little bit after getting out in front of it. And now they're saying, you know what? The slow walking is over. We're either going to be all in it or we're going to be all out of it. So I hope that they realize that. And I mean, we have signs that they realize that because they're moving up the electrification. Is that lip service? Well, we'll see. Let's see what these cars are. 12 BEVs in 4 years, Alex. So let's see what they are. We really right now only know what we know the Mini electric, we know the iX3, the i4, and the iNext. So what else? I mean, that's just 4 vehicles. There's still 9 more. And let's see what they look like.
All right. Well, listen, as always, it's good to have you. And, we'll see what else the world of electric cars brings us next week. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you next Friday.
Thanks, Alex. Take care.
All right, it's always good to hear Tom's opinion about this, especially BMW. He's been passionate about this brand, one of their first fans and customers of their electrification. So, and I got to tell you, I agree with them on most of this. And as I mentioned, I think this is good news for everybody. I think setting an example of what's going to happen to you if you're not embracing electrification is a good sign. Is it going to translate into something? We can hope. I don't know. We'll see who the new CEO is. We'll see what board actually wants out of the new CEO, whether they believe that they need to make more gas cars or actually they finally realize electrification is the way to go. We'll find out. If you want to see more from Tom, of course, there's a link in the description of this video for all of his articles on Inside EVs. And of course, you can find him on Twitter at Tom Malog. Every time you see his name, there's a Twitter handle there. I'll put it in the description of this video, but also in the description of this video, the link to our free newsletter. And we do a bonus story every Saturday, which is tomorrow. So check that out. That's a third free thing in the description of this video. All right. As always, it's been fun having Tom on. I missed him last week, so I'm looking forward to the next Friday. Other than that, see you next time, and remember to stay charged.